Chicken George was up in the mall food court in Baltimore, and on a Friday the line ran out past the fountain. George's Music Room on Roosevelt Road in Chicago knew what record you wanted before you finished asking for it. Bobby's Happy House sat on 125th Street in Harlem since 1946, and the man behind the counter had produced half the records in the bins. Today, almost every one of them is gone. Not moved, not bought out by somebody bigger, and reopened under a new name. Gone, and most of them with nothing left on the building to tell you they were ever there. These were our stores, built with our money, run by our people, standing in neighborhoods where nobody else would open a door. And here is the part that still sits heavy. America lost Sears and Kmart to Amazon and the shopping mall. Our stores went down for reasons that had almost nothing to do with shopping. Baltimore, November of 1979, second floor of Mondawmin Mall. A man named Theodore Holmes opened a fried chicken counter and named it Chicken George, after the character from Roots. Everybody in the neighborhood had read the book, and everybody had watched the miniseries 2 years earlier. Ben Vereen played him on television in that hat and that scarf, and Holmes put the hat and the scarf right into the logo. You looked up at the sign and you already knew whose place this was. The food was not fast food pretending to be homemade. Chicken and biscuits, yes, but gumbo too, and greens and rice. And the greens were seasoned with beef instead of pork, so folks who did not eat pork could still eat there. One small decision that tells you exactly who Holmes was cooking for. It worked. Chicken George grew out of Mondawmin into other locations and other states, and at its height, it was the largest Black-owned fast food company in the United States. Holmes told Black Enterprise magazine in 1982 that with the research they had done and the management team they had put together, the competition caught hell trying to keep up. Then the company started changing hands. Holmes sold to another management company in 1987. 2 years after that, it changed owners again. By September of 1991, the whole thing filed for bankruptcy and dissolved. 12 years, from the biggest we ever built in fast food to a court filing. Baltimore folks still ask for those biscuits. Chicago's West Side, December 12, 1969. George Daniels opened a record store on Roosevelt Road with almost nothing in it. 6 albums and a small stack of 45s, by his own telling. He called it George's Music Room. If you shopped there, you remember, it did not work like a chain store. You could walk in, hum something you had heard on WVON on the way over, and George or somebody behind that counter would put the right record in your hand. He knew the block. He knew what the neighborhood was going to be playing before the neighborhood knew. That store grew into the largest independent record store in the Midwest, and it stayed independent while the chains ate everybody else. Now, the national charts back then were built on reports from record stores. The companies handed out computers and tracking systems to independent stores so their sales would register in the numbers that decided which songs got played and promoted. Daniels said out loud what other Black retailers were saying quietly. Those systems were going to white-owned independents and not to stores like his, which meant our neighborhoods could buy a record all day long and the country would never see it in the count. Think about what that does over 20 years. Our dollars moved the music and never showed up in the ledger. George's Music Room closed in 2010 after 41 years. The building on the west side is being brought back now as a museum and event space, which is more than most of these stores ever got. Harlem, 125th Street, 1946. A man named Bobby Robinson came home from the Army with $2,500 he had saved during the war, and he opened a record shop. He is widely credited as the first Black business owner on that whole stretch of 125th Street. He called it Bobby's Happy House, and the name was honest. That store was a doorway. Kids came in to hear something loud. Singers came in hoping the owner would listen. Because Robinson was not only selling records, he was making them. He started label after label out of that neighborhood. Red Robin, Whirlin' Disc, Enjoy. And he had an ear that does not come along often. He discovered Gladys Knight and the Pips. Decades later, when a brand new sound started coming out of the Bronx that the big companies did not understand yet, Robinson was the one putting early hip-hop records out on Enjoy while everybody uptown was still calling it a fad. He kept going to work at that store into his 90s. Happy House closed on January 21st, 2008. Not because people stopped buying records there. The landlord was going to tear the building down. 62 years on that. Corner ended with a demolition notice, and Robinson died 3 years later at 93. Hold that one next to Blockbuster for a second. Blockbuster lost to the internet. Bobby Robinson lost to somebody else's plan for his block. Detroit, 1933. The country was in the Great Depression. Banks were shut. A young pharmacist named Sidney Barthwell borrowed money and opened a drugstore anyway. He did not stop at one. Barthwell Drugs became the largest chain of black-owned drugstores in America. 9 stores and 3 ice cream parlors at its peak. What Detroit remembers is not the pharmacy counter. It is the ice cream. Barthwell made his own, and if you were a child in that city, you knew exactly which store you were begging to stop at after church. There was a soda fountain, there was candy, and there was a black man in a white coat who filled your grandmother's prescription, knew her name, and knew what she could afford that week. That is what a drugstore was to us. A pharmacy, a candy shop, and a place where nobody watched you like you came in to steal. Barthwell later served as a judge, and he endowed a scholarship at the Wayne State College of Pharmacy that carries his name. The stores themselves are gone. In Detroit, say Barthwell to somebody over 70 and watch their face change. The most famous gospel voice in the world decided to sell chicken. Mahalia Jackson put her name on a franchise chain called Mahalia Jackson's Glori Fried Chicken. There were locations in Chicago, 5 of them at one point, plus Memphis, Cleveland, Jacksonville, Detroit, and Dallas. Her reason was not money. She had money. The Chicago Defender described the chain as black-owned, black-managed, and black-staffed, and that was the entire idea. Real jobs and real ownership in the neighborhoods that had supported her music for 30 years. The chain did not last. Within a few years, the business fell apart, tangled up in the same problems that took down almost every black franchise attempt of that era. Franchisees with no capital behind them, margins too thin to absorb a bad quarter, and partners who did not deliver what they promised. Mahalia Jackson died in 1972. A restaurant carrying her name survived in Nashville alongside a fried pie shop until 2008, and then that was it. The Queen of Gospel tried to franchise her way into black employment, and the business world let it die. While that was happening, a defensive back was trying the same thing from the other direction. Brady Keys Jr. played in the National Football League, and in 1967 he opened a chicken restaurant in San Diego called All Pro Chicken. Sports theme, athlete's name, and a serious plan behind it. In under 2 years, he had 7 outlets and a company valued around $2 million. He talked to the New York Times about it in 1969, and what he wanted was for black people to see a black man owning the whole operation, not managing somebody else's. Keys became one of the first black entrepreneurs to run a nationwide fast food operation, and he later moved into Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken franchises when almost nobody who looked like him held those contracts. All Pro itself faded. The name is nearly forgotten. The road he opened is not. Harlem again, 1982. Daniel Day opened Dapper Dan's boutique on 125th Street. The luxury houses in Europe were not interested in black customers, would not court them, would not dress them, would not even pretend. So Day took their logos, printed his own fabric, and built garments the brands themselves had never imagined. Leather coats, custom sets, cut and stitched right there uptown, upstairs, at all hours, because his clientele did not shop at noon. Who wore it? Mike Tyson, Eric B. and Rakim, Salt and Peppa, LL Cool J. If you have seen a photograph of 80s Harlem style, you have seen his work. The fashion houses came after him with lawsuits, and in 1992 they shut his shop down. 10 years, closed by the same companies whose courage he was borrowing. Then in 2017, Gucci put out a jacket that looked exactly like one of his designs, and the internet turned on them. What came out of that was a partnership. Gucci opened a Dapper Dan atelier in Harlem, which made Daniel Day the first outside designer in that company's 100-year history to get a co-branded store. His memoir became a bestseller. Time named him one of the 100 most influential people in the world in 2020. They shut his door in 1992. They paid to open it again in 2018. Sometimes we win one. Richmond, Virginia. A man named Johnny Johnson ran a chain of grocery stores called Community Pride. He put full-service grocery stores in black neighborhoods that the big chains had already written off. This was decades before anybody on television used the phrase food desert. Johnson simply saw a neighborhood with no place to buy fresh food and opened one. Community Pride closed its last store in 2003, and Churchill went years afterward without a real grocery store. Not months, years. People rode the bus with grocery bags just to get milk home. The same story ran in Baltimore, and it deserves its own minute. Charles Burns learned retail management inside Safeway, and then he built his own, Super Pride, and later Community Foods. By 1981, he had 11 years in business and 6 stores across Baltimore, and that year he opened a location in the Deanwood neighborhood of Washington, D.C. Where do you think that store was? In a building Safeway had walked away from. Sit with that. The white chain abandoned the black neighborhood, and a black grocer moved into the empty shell and fed those families. That happened over and over across this country, and almost nobody wrote it down. Los Angeles, 1941. Alfred and Bernice Ligon opened the Aquarian Book Shop. It became the oldest black-owned bookstore in the United States, and for 50 years it was where Los Angeles went to find books no other store in the city would carry. Maya Angelou read there. Alex Haley read there. In 1992, after 4 officers were acquitted in the beating of Rodney King and the city went up, the Aquarian burned. 7,000 books? Gone. The losses were over $300,000, and the store was not insured. Alfred Ligon was 86 years old, and this is what he told the Los Angeles Times. The magnificent phoenix bird should rise from these ashes. Now, it may take a while. The store reopened briefly in another location and closed for good in 1994. Ligon lived to 96. 51 years of black literature in one room, and it ended in one night, in a fire lit by the anger of a city that had been pushed too far. Nobody wins in that sentence. Harlem again, 1932, because the bookstores are their own chapter. Louis Michaux opened the National Memorial African Bookstore on 7th Avenue with almost no money. He called it the House of Common Sense and the home of proper propaganda. He put a sign out front that said, "Knowledge is power," and he stacked that store so full that customers had to turn sideways to get through it. Michaux did not just sell books. He set up a platform outside, and the men who spoke from it included Malcolm X. If you came to Harlem in the 50s or 60s looking for the pulse of black thought, you went to that corner. The store ran from the early 1930s into the middle of the 1970s. He was not alone in it. Una Molzak ran Liberation Bookstore in Harlem. Vaughn's Bookstore anchored Detroit. Every one of those stores was a school for people who had been shut out of schools, and every one of them was watched by the FBI for that exact reason. So why did all of this disappear? The music retail story gives the clearest answer, because researchers actually studied it. Scholars documenting black-owned record stores across the South concluded that the 1980s marked the twilight of their golden age. One store, Kurt's, was closed by the end of that decade. Washington Sound in Shelby, North Carolina, hung on into the mid-90s and then went dark. The mechanics were plain. When home recording and then the big chains cut into profits, a national chain could absorb the loss across 1,000 locations. A store with one location and no line of credit could not absorb anything. Stack the rest on top of that. Integration, which we fought for and needed, also moved our shopping dollars downtown to stores that had refused to hire us a decade earlier. Highway construction cut through black business districts in city after city and took the customers with it. Banks that would not lend to black homeowners would not lend to black store owners either, so when the hard year came, there was no loan to survive it on. And when the neighborhoods finally became valuable again, the rent finished the job. Ask Bobby Robinson. None of that is Amazon. Every bit of it was policy, and policy is written by people. But the walk does not end sad. Marcus Books in Oakland is still open, still black-owned, still selling the same books Michaux was selling in 1932. The Shrine of the Black Madonna bookstore in Atlanta is still standing. Medu bookstore is still there. And a whole new generation of black-owned shops has opened in the last 10 years, run by people who grew up hearing about the ones we lost. Most of those buildings came down. What happened inside them is still going on somewhere. Every store in this video existed because somebody looked at a neighborhood that had been given nothing and decided to open a door anyway. Michaux said it best, and he said it on a sign small enough to hang in a window. Black is beautiful, but knowledge is power. Which store do you miss? Say the name and say your city. The corner store, the record shop, the beauty supply, the barber shop, the funeral home, the rib joint that closed when the owner passed. I read every comment on this channel, and folks in there keep naming places I have never heard of, places that never made it into a single book. Put yours down. Let's get them written down somewhere before they are gone twice.